These are adverse childhood experiences. They go from verbal, sexual, or physical abuse through other exposures like hunger, homelessness, incarceration, household instability like mental illness, divorce, and drug or alcohol use. And it's important to remember this list because these translate into the adult expression of adverse childhood experiences and are reinforced by adverse community experiences. So there's this alignment between the individual exposure, the transgenerational exposure, and the community experiences. The long-term consequences of exposure to adverse childhood experiences is something called toxic stress. I'm going to point out at least 2 cycles which perpetuate toxic stress, those across generations and those that cross individuals with communities. These are widespread, very common, and the consequences of adverse childhood experiences rise in direct proportion to the frequency of exposures. A large number of children have exposure to at least one of these, but many have exposure to 2 or more. The consequences of exposure to ACEs, as they are expressed in adulthood, are associated with many of those same behaviors that children were exposed to in early childhood, such as illicit drug use, alcohol abuse, attempted suicide, depression, and severe obesity.
I think it's essential for not only caregivers, but children themselves to understand that the brain controls your body. And so in order for you to be effective at utilizing all aspects of who you are, you need to be familiar with how your brain works, how it controls your thoughts, how it controls your behavior, your emotions, every function of who you are as a person and your behavior.
So if we think about how ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, are so pervasive and how research has identified that upwards of 62% of our population is impacted by adversity, and how over time continuous adversity on an infant's brain through toddler years actually rewires the architecture of the brain. The need to consistently figure out where a threat might be actually puts children in a heightened state and needing to figure out, how can I be safe? Am I loved? And is this environment stable and trusted? Those basic needs being compromised actually impact the infrastructure of the brain, because when we recognize that the synaptic connections that are required are developed through experiences, if your experiences are toxic, then that literally alters how those connections are made and which ones are the most important to be made. So ACEs have become a foundational conversation that I've been having with early childhood educators, program directors, and owners to understand that whether you realize it or not, there's probably children who have been impacted by some type of adversity, and the behaviors that you're seeing are actually a symptom of a response to surviving that adversity.